Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160, in their 1610. I'm Zach, and with me, as always, is the greatest co-host in the history of podcasts. And his name is John Opat! Dun, 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 dun.
Wow. Is that from something?
And his name is John Cena meme.
Oh.
Where they're prank calling that woman about supporting John Cena at Super Slam.
That's funny. I've never seen that.
Oh, I'll have to send it to
Probably
you.
because it's John Cena, now that I think about it.
Oh, that's right.
That's a good one right there. How's your week been? How's your 2 weeks been?
It's
Zach,
been great.
Spider-Man is dead.
He is.
Can you believe it?
I really can't.
When I picked up the issues to read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot. Spider-Man's dead.
You're like, oh boy, I hope we fight Mysterio for the 10th time.
I thought, oh boy, time for another fun romp with my friends Kong and Peter.
No.
And Peter's dead and Kong is in Nebraska or something.
That's right. Yeah, well, it is funny that you said 2 weeks ago, dude, this issue we need to see people grieve. We need his funeral. We need people to talk about how great Spider-Man was. And that's what we're getting today.
Yep. True.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you coming in hot with anything? You got anything else that you wanted to say at the top?
Do you have anything else?
I don't.
Oh, man.
How crazy is that? We go 2 weeks. I mean, I guess I can say go Pacers.
We can say go Pacers. They play today.
It's been
and
bugging
today
me
is Mother's Day.
That they've been blacking out those games in Indiana. I tried to watch one of the games, and you just couldn't have it on TV.
Yeah. Have I complained on here about NBA TV and how, silly of a service it is?
No, but please do.
Okay. Because if you get NBA TV, you can watch all the NBA games except for the team in your area.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand the point of the service. What do they think people are getting that service for? Except to watch their team. Legitimately, I just sometimes I just wonder.
When I tried to watch a Pacers playoff game in Indianapolis and I couldn't find it on TV, it was just blacked out. And I was like, okay, so are there unsold seats? Are they hoping people buy these tickets and go see the game live? Is it not selling well? They're like, no, it's a sold out crowd. You just can't watch it because you.
Yeah. And, they used to always be on Fox Sports Net. Every single Pacers game would be on Fox Sports Net, and it was awesome. And now there's just nothing like that. And, on Mother's Day, my poor old mother, who's not that old, she texted me before Game 3, and she was like, this one's on ESPN, so I can watch it. That's, upsetting that the fans can't watch just, the playoff games,
Right.
Always.
There have been a couple incredible comebacks already in the last two series for the Pacers. And their most loyal fans are having to see it later on highlight reels.
Yeah. The scores are 3 and 1,600. Teams that are trailing by 7 in the last minute of the game. 3 and 1,600 or something. And the Pacers have won 2 of those in the last 8 days.
I saw that. I mean, they're electric. They're just I know they just lost their last game, but...
And they're probably going to lose this one, and they're probably going to lose the series, but...
Well, I don't know. No one thought they had a victory in them those first 2 games. So... Yeah.
Today's big.
Let's see.
They've got to bring it at home. Losing today would be really bad.
For all the mothers.
For all the mothers. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they say that in the locker room before they go out there. All right, men, win this one for all the moms.
Dude, that'd get I bet that'd get Tyrese Halliburton hyped. Okay, I've got something else.
Okay, what's up?
This is I don't really like talking about myself, Zach. That's why I started a podcast, obviously.
Oh,
But
let me say this. Congratulations on finishing your master's program.
thank you so much, Zach. That's exactly what I was gonna say, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very proud of you, big dog.
I'm 100% done. The technical graduation date was yesterday, so I got an email yesterday that was like, "Congrats, you're officially an alum. Hey, would you like to donate some money?" And then I meant Friday. This happened on Friday, and then also on Friday, I got the results from like my final teaching praxis test that I had to take, and I don't know if I told you, but I was like a little worried that maybe I didn't pass it just because when the initial scores came back, they'd like looked weird. And no, of course I passed it. I like crushed it. Duh.
Dude, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thank you. So yes, I'm officially done.
Massive dub for Johnny O.
Master dub.
Master.
For Master Johnny O.
Oh my God. I should have.
We're going to hear about this all. You're going to hear about this all episode. I decided for one episode, I'm going to chime in a bunch with things like, Zach, as someone who has their master's in education, you just are so, blah, blah, blah.
Dude, I know
so
it.
Webheads, be prepared.
I know it. It's the weirdest thing. Like, just about everyone in my life has their master's or like just finished law school or, something kind of impressive. And I'm sitting here with my bachelor's of communication.
Dude, it's not that impressive.
I screwed up university.
It's not that impressive. You're just like paying and doing busy work for a title, which is maybe all school ever really was.
Wow. Hot take from the education guy.
Dude, I watched a video yesterday that was like college is basically just using ChatGPT for 4 years. And then graduating. College is just like who can use ChatGPT well enough to, pass.
That's so scary.
It is. That's what I thought. I was like, but the kids have to know how to do things, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Think about when we are old men and need to go to the doctor and there's like something serious going on. And it's just
hopefully there's still enough people to fill the important jobs. Like some people are still going to be motivated to do work and succeed, but I could see the very high majority of people that are just doing ChatGPT on their assignments like the night before. I mean, in my master's program, I could like read discussion posts and be like, this is ChatGPT. Obviously, it sounds like it,
Yeah. So here's, I guess, my crazy socialist idea when I hear that.
I love it.
If this work is just such busy work and maybe doesn't actually advance society and can be automated for the most part, why don't we just have UBI and let the machines do it for us and not have people in this like wage slavery system where you have to work to live? Just a thought. The go-getters that you're talking about who still want to become doctors and lawyers and engineers, they will absolutely be compensated on top of their UBI for their efforts and their contributions. But like, why do we just need like, I don't know, claims representatives or something or things that could be automated and that person still get to live a life?
Yes. Okay. Since this is a political podcast, I'm going to respond to a couple things in there.
Okay.
You're 100% right. That's like what Andrew Yang like years ago, not that I am like a huge Andrew Yang guy, but he talked about that a lot, specifically in like the trucking industry, where once we can do like driverless cars, disrupting the trucking industry with like AI is going to like influence the entire country. He was talking about just because like how many people that will like put out of work. And then because they're out of work, this group's out of work and blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about how like those people who did that job would still be compensated like as if they were doing it. And same thing with like the fast food workers who, right? No one has to take your order anymore because there's like screens. Well, that's great for the company, but the workers are now just out of work, so maybe those workers should actually be the ones like getting part of that so the economy doesn't collapse.
Right.
Even though maybe that's not like the most fair thing, just so the economy doesn't collapse, we have to like pay people. We can't just make people homeless when, or I mean, we can. That's what we do, right? But
I mean, it's already not fair. We have things like the healthcare industry and insurance. We have so many people whose jobs is just to be the middleman that raises prices so you can pay the middleman.
Yeah.
When there didn't need to be a middleman in the first place. So I think if we are like ready to evolve to a type of economy where things still run well, but people also have the
Zach,
freedom.
Now that's the other thing I was going to talk about. Keep going.
You don't think it would?
No, finish your thought.
If it's possible to get an economy where there's not this social contract where it's like, not only do you have to work or else you die, you have to find what we consider valuable work, and you have to make enough money. What if we were just like, look, dude, we're gonna be a functioning society, but we're gonna make sure no one dies because they're poor. All right, full stop. Like, if you don't work, that's cool. I don't really care. We don't need absolutely everyone to work. You'll still have food in your belly and a roof over your head.
Yeah. And then obviously the other side is like, well, then nobody would work. And it'd be like, yes, they would, because a lot of people want to make more than like the bare minimum that they would get from like the US government to survive. And a lot of people actually enjoy working, which is like, I mean, I enjoy the heck out of my job. If it paid more, that'd be awesome. I have tons of friends who like what they do. So, okay.
If you're a right-wing workaholic who thinks that everyone should work because otherwise no one would work, and you love your work and you really believe that you're going to someday work yourself into being rich, even though your boss doesn't give you any raises and you're not really being paid the value.
Being a fucking hater today
of your labor. No, I'm not. Here's the good news for you. If you're one of those people, clearly you would not give up working if we went to this kind of economy. So it would benefit you because you would make more money. You would make what you're making as a worker, and you would make what you are due with UBI. So ironically, that would be the circumstances under which you would be able to become a self-made rich person like you think you can do right now.
Yes. Politics.
All right.
No. I want to talk about one more thing.
This.
No.
Okay.
No. I want to talk about one more thing. This is more technology based. This isn't even politics, but you were saying like the jobs that are being automated and if they're not needed and didn't you even mention, you didn't say customer service, but maybe you said,
I think I said like claims rep.
Yes, you did.
Could be a robot now.
And let me tell you, no, it can't. And no, it shouldn't. It's so infuriatingly frustrating, which are two synonyms. And when I cannot get in touch with someone where 10 years ago, my problem could be solved with like a 6-minute phone call, right? I'd wait on hold for a couple minutes and then I'd talk to someone and it would be over. And now, dude, I feel like Dennis Reynolds sometimes, just like going through automated things on the phone, like automated, whatever it's called. Prompts. And ordering at Taco Bell has become a fucking nightmare because they don't have a person taking orders anymore. I have to talk to like the computer screen. Oh my gosh, I just hate it. I just hate technology. We've heard about that on this podcast before.
I am with you.
The goal is more convenience. I'm using quotes, but it is never more convenient. Technology never makes things more convenient. It only saves money for the people who are running the company. That's the only thing it ever does.
Sure. I agree with everything you just said. I really do, like deeply. But I think what I was getting at more was they are already automating these jobs. They have already decided that these are jobs that don't require a person. That's not necessarily my judgment call. I'm just stating the reality.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But I know you're not making the decisions.
I have been on the biggest anti-technology kick recently here. Anyways, I'm glad people get to listen to this on their iPhones through their Beats headphone speakers and have the Wi-Fi to deliver a podcast. That's all we need in life.
Yep.
Technology should have stopped there.
Yep. Let's send it over to our sponsor, Tesla.
Every business says they're better. But the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
And we're back. And today we're getting into...
Oh, no!
What?
My iPad's dead. That's so funny. F***ing technology! Sorry, a lot of curse words in this episode.
John, what would Ali say about that?
He would say that if someone doesn't have their shit together, it's either because they don't... Or wait, what is it? If I don't know. He'd probably say, I don't have my shit together.
Yeah, be prepared.
Yeah. Yep. If someone, what would he say? If someone's not there, it's either because they don't care or they don't have their together.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like there's no valid excuse to be late, like consistently. Like once or twice, yeah, you could have got a flat tire. There could have been traffic. But if you're late every day, it's your own fault. And he was kind of right.
He kind of is right. I'm never late to this podcast. I never show up 5 to 10 minutes late. And I always walk into the school exactly 1 minute before I have kids coming down to me. If I ever catch traffic on the way to school, it is a very exciting day in my head.
John is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Love that. That's a great Lord of the Rings reference, right?
That's like my favorite line in those movies.
That's a good one. Oh my gosh! Speaking of movies, I just can't wait to talk about the Thunderbolts.
I know it's so good.
Now, this was supposed to be our Black Mirror episode. Did you remember that?
I did watch the Drink Your Piss episode of Black Mirror.
Good. Okay. I figured we would do Thunderbolts. This Thunderbolts would be our big thing this week. And then, we could move Black Mirror to next week if we wanted to.
Which is really like 2 weeks.
Which is really 2 weeks. Because you're supposed to watch all the Black Mirror episodes, right?
Oh, dude, I don't know if I'm in the headspace for that. This one already is like so... And then he kills himself.
Yeah, it's like the worst one. It's like, it's so stupid. It's so dumb. But hey, man, I guess, what if that's just the future? You got to rip your own teeth out and drink your own piss just to make $20. Hey man, what if your wife ran on batteries?
I mean, they're overplaying things that already exist in our world, right? There is stuff like that where there's like these predatory subscription services or like, I don't know, prescription drug prices or stuff. And then there are things like, hey, you probably don't really want to do this, but you're desperate for money and people will pay online for it. So,
I mean, yes, I got it. No, I got it. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't think of it as like, oh, that's so silly. I think of like, this is like another way to look at things that we already have.
I don't know. I think it's pretty silly. I think only because there were a couple things. I guess we're talking about the Drink Your Piss Black Mirror episode now. The subscription service wasn't that much to keep your wife alive.
I mean, $500 a month.
And I think it started at like $300. And then it went up to like $800. And then I think it was like $2,000 maybe. I don't know if those numbers are exactly correct. But that's just not that much money at the end of the day to keep your wife alive, So there's just so many ways to like come up with that much money. Asking friends who make more money than you. I have a ton of friends who, if it was to stay alive, I could get $300 out of my peer group pretty easily a month. I'd say maybe it's like taking that for granted. But you know, he was also working like overtime shifts every single night at his job, so that almost needs to be addressed for me to believe anything about that. Like, how much are you making? Why are you making such little money? And why? Am I nitpicking? Feels like maybe I'm nitpicking, but they made such a point to show how much he's working. And I probably am maybe like showing a little privilege here, but it didn't feel like enough money for them to be like going through all this for it, you know?
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but
like it could have been so much more money. It's to keep your wife alive. It could have been like $10,000 a month, and he's making $1,000 for drinking his own piss instead of it being like $300 and he's making 15. You know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it was the scale was a little bit off, but the point of it was just like, look how much people suffer under, you know, these systems.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also really dumb when she just stops moving and starts doing advertisements. Like, how would that be good for any company? Except that probably the point is it's not good for those companies. They just want them to have to upgrade because it's not about like more convenient. You know, they just want to like get every last penny from them.
Sure.
Well, that was a pretty good one. That's a pretty good episode. That's like the most depressing one, I'd say. So
yeah. You know what's funny?
There's some good ones in there. You should at least watch the Peter Capaldi one by 2 weeks. If you don't watch any of the other ones, it's called Thronglets.
The what?
Thronglets.
The Wronglets?
Thronglets.
Thronglets.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a real word?
No. It's something from the episode.
That's what I thought. I keep misremembering that one episode of Doctor Who that we watched where the people are racist at the end. I keep thinking that was a Black Mirror episode. Because it kind of feels like it's
kind of Black Mirror-y. Yeah.
It's like anti-technology and, oh, look at how dumb society's getting.
Yeah. And then the big twist is like, but they hate black people. Yeah. They're all going to die, and it's fine, kind of.
And then the episode just sort of ends.
There have been some Doctor Who... Sorry, if anyone's wondering why I don't know why Zach is still kind of like on this. If anyone's wondering why I'm trying to kill time here, it's to give my iPad time to charge a couple percent. Which it's at 2% now, so it's at least turned on. So, but let's see. This new Doctor Who season came out, Zach, and there have been some reasonably good episodes from it.
Well, that's good.
The one from last night, because they come out Saturday nights or Friday nights or something, it was pretty bad, but that's okay. They can't all be winners. Sometimes they're just going to be not very good.
That's a good attitude to have about things.
Okay, I feel like I've lost you. So, should we get into Spider-Man?
Sure, if your iPad is alive.
It's at 2% here. Can you remind us where we're at, Zach?
Yeah.
Did anything interesting happen last week?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. It's just been more of the same. Oh yeah, Peter Parker died.
Oh. And he was such a good kid.
So Peter is dead, and now we are getting his funeral issues. This is Ultimate Fallout 1, and then I will be covering 2 later.
Yes, I'm covering 1. How exciting.
John gets to go first.
Okay. Ultimate Fallout number 1. Zach, the title of this issue is called Spider-Man No More.
So sad.
That is sad.
This is also, I know I've been saying this a lot, but this is a famous cover. This cover of Spider-Man kind of in the shadows, giant, with Mary Jane, Gwen, and Aunt May beneath him. This one gets referenced a lot, too, when people are talking about Death of Spider-Man.
This is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Mark Bagley, inked by Andy Lanning, colored by Justin Ponzer and Laura Martin, lettered by VC's Corey Petit, and the cover art that Zach just mentioned is by Bagley, Lanning, and Ponzer. So, we open here on a full-page panel of the Daily Bugle's Spider-Man article after his death, and it says, Spider-Man R.I.P. New York City's fallen hero was Queens High School student Peter Parker. Reporting by Frederick Foswell. That's pretty interesting. I mean, that's like the first thing you notice, obviously, is that's not J. Jonah Jameson.
No, Frederick Foswell, we have not met in the Ultimate Universe. He is usually the big man. He's a villain. So it's interesting that he's a reporter writing basically Peter's eulogy in the Bugle.
Oh, that is interesting. I didn't know that at all.
It is also interesting that this is a newspaper, because we were told that the Daily Bugle has switched over to dailybugle.net, and it was like a website now. And then do you notice what the photo is that they used?
No.
That is the cover of issue 1 from 2000.
Really? Wow.
That was the very first cover in Ultimate Spider-Man.
That's fun.
Yep. You can even see the beginning of the spider logo up here in the corner, because they couldn't crop out the Ultimate Spider-Man title, I guess.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. Yeah, so this isn't J. Jonah Jameson writing it, and it's not Ben Urich writing it.
Very strange.
Very strange. So we turn the page, and the first person that we meet up with is Gwen Stacy. And she just she looks, angry. She's kind of crying. She puts her hands in her face and says, I'm cursed.
And she had been reading that paper.
Yes. And we kind of move on to different people, just a panel at a time. And I don't want to spoil this issue at all, but this was something I had a problem with. This very first panel of Gwen Stacy. I just don't. Why would she say I'm cursed?
Because her dad died, her mom left her, she died, and now Peter's dead.
Okay.
She thinks like everyone in her life is dying.
I guess.
She's just a teenage girl with a really hard life.
I guess. My problem is, if we're only going to get like one page of characterization for any of these people to show us how they're being affected, I don't like that the one thing we're getting her saying is I'm cursed. I would prefer to see something more about like Peter.
Yeah. I could see that, and I'll be honest, I didn't really love how little Gwen was in like the Death of Spider-Man issues. Like, even when her and Aunt May come back into the fold, we mentioned last week, she wasn't really saying much. She wasn't really doing much. She had like one line where she was like, I'll go check on Johnny. And then after that, it was her job to keep Aunt May away from the fight. And I kind of think Gwen should matter more as a character in her own right. And this scene is kind of an extension of that.
I did notice that like she just like these issues that we read today, I'd noticed she's just like not in them very much. She just doesn't have that much to do a lot of the times. And is she still like she's like a dead person come back to life, right?
She is. I think they extracted all of the carnage out of her, so she can't just like turn into carnage again. But she is basically a reborn person.
Yeah. Okay, so we leave Gwen, and now we go and meet up with J. Jonah Jameson, and he is typing an article, and he says, I knew the truth about Peter Parker. I knew he was Spider, and then we can see him backspacing and deleting what he's about to write. And now, and he's like struggling with it at his desk. So now we see why J. Jonah Jameson didn't write the initial eulogy, because I guess he just couldn't bring himself to do it or something.
That is interesting. That's your takeaway. My takeaway from this was, well, this is a big deal, right? There's going to be multiple stories and follow-ups written about this, and Frederick Foswell wrote the one that just goes out first thing. But Jonah is working on a more in depth.
Like it comes out a couple days later, not 8 hours later.
Right. He really wants to get this right. And I also didn't think he backspaced all the way. He changed what he wrote. As far as we can see, he changed what he wrote from, I knew the truth about Peter Parker. I knew he was Spider-Man. He changes it to, I knew the truth about Pete. So I
think that's to show us that he's backspacing the whole thing. Because why would he ever... Are you about to say he's going to call him Pete like they're friends? Because he's never ever called him Pete a day in his life.
I think he's...
Nobody's ever called him Pete.
I think he's retroactively telling himself that he was a lot closer to this kid.
No. I mean, you might have some foresight here on if anything happens in future issues that I don't know about, but I don't think that at all. I think he's backspacing because he can't bring himself to write a eulogy. And to me, it does fit well with the very opening scene, the very opening page where, I mean, my immediate thought was, why is J. Jonah Jameson not writing the eulogy for Spider-Man? And then it tells us why 2 pages later. So that is 100% how I see it.
Okay.
But you've got the knowledge of foresight here, Zach.
No, I really don't remember how this specifically plays out. That was just my interpretation upon reading it again.
It would be kind of funny if J. Jonah Jameson, if that is what if he's I don't know if that's narcissism or whatnot, to be oh, Pete, yeah, me and Pete were great friends.
Yeah,
we were always palling around in the office. And
one time we took out these evil incest twins together. I got shot. Pete had my back. It was great.
I don't think that is how he sees his relationship. I don't know. I think he has a lot of respect and admiration for him. I don't think he sees him as a pal or anything, or a friend, or
I do think you're probably right. You've convinced me.
So we turn the page. Now we meet up with Johnny Storm, and he is just floating in the sky, and he gives out a big scream and goes supernova, and that's kind of how he's dealing with it. We can tell he's pretty upset. He's just screaming and exploding in the air.
He's doing that really close to the Empire State Building.
That is exactly what I noticed. I'm this must just be a flash of light and not any type of damaging explosion, because otherwise he's going to break some stuff.
I can literally see his flames going past and around the observation deck.
Yeah. It's probably just a big flash of light. He knows his powers. So then we see some criminals who are robbing, maybe a Sears warehouse or something. They're stealing plasma screen TVs. And all of a sudden they hear something.
They're going to need some TiVos with that.
You, Zach, you fool. You absolute clown. You don't steal TiVos in this town. Don't you know who controls those? That's Hammerhead, isn't it?
It was Hammerhead. He's dead now.
You'd have to be crazy to be stealing from Hammerhead.
No, man. The TiVo market is wide open now. There's no Hammerhead. There's no Kingpin.
That's true. Wow. That's a market that's... Zach, as a Masters of Education majored, I actually know a little bit about market manipulation. And let me tell you, that's just a market that's waiting to be cornered and manipulated.
I think so. And there's no Spider-Man to stop you now.
Oh my gosh. Someone's about to be rich. TiVo money. So the thugs are did you hear that? And then we see the iron fist, metal fist that we've seen before of Kitty Pryde in her big Assassin's Creed outfit. and she punches the bad guys. Man, they do a really good job of showing her powers and like making you feel the force of them. I think it's probably has to do with the fact that her hand does just look like it's like made of metal almost. But dude, I mean, I feel like every time she does something, I like feel bad for the thugs.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just this in this episode. She's always just like manhandling people.
She's brutal. People underestimate Kitty Pryde, but I mean, she was like raised and trained by Wolverine and the other X-Men. But like specifically in the main universe, she was like trained by Wolverine and some ninjas when she's like 13 years old. And I like to imagine before she like punches people, I just think it'd be cool if they ever said, oh yeah, she's phasing her hand the whole way there. So there's no like wind resistance or drag on her, and then it just goes solid right before she's about to hit you.
Well, can she make her body like more dense? That's what I always assume she's doing when she's hitting the people. Like like it feels like they are actually getting hit by like a hunk of metal.
Yeah, I think theoretically she should be able to do that. I don't know that it's ever worked that way though, because what she does is she can manipulate the distance between like molecules and atoms. So she can also technically like walk on air because she's making the air molecules denser than they usually are under her feet.
You think she could turn like sand into gold or oxygen into gold like Dr. Manhattan?
I think if she were an Omega level mutant, which means there's no upper limit to her powers, she probably could do all of that. I don't think she has quite that much control. And I don't know if she has enough control to make her fist denser. I think she's just a badass lady who knows how to throw a punch.
I love it. Well, we love badass ladies on this podcast.
We do.
And she looks really scary, and they try to shoot at her, and she's just beating the heck out of these guys. And the thugs are kind of like, okay, we surrender. We give up. And she says, I hate you. And she punches them again. And then we can see she takes her hood down and she's kind of like crying. She's so mad. And she says, I hate you all. So we're just seeing how everybody's dealing with the death of Spider-Man. She's going on a rampage, obviously. Then we catch up with Peter's school. And it is only his teacher, Mrs. Dowling, and Flash Thompson in the room. Everybody else did not come to school. And Flash says, is class canceled? Before he has a confused look and says, was I the only one who didn't know Peter Parker was Spider-Man? That's an interesting thought. But was he? Did everybody else know?
Not all the like random background characters, but Kong figured out pretty fast. Not that he goes there anymore. MJ knew, Gwen knew, Kitty knew. And
I guess that's true. I guess that is true. Yeah, a lot of people did know.
And then you
the
have
principal
people...
maybe knew, right?
Oh, I think he did. He was like, I don't want to know, but we knew he knew. Even Bombshell, right? Lana Baumgartner. She kind of had a hint, and retroactively when they say Spider-Man died and this kid was Spider-Man, and she's had interactions with both versions of him, she probably would not come to school.
Yeah. So then we meet up with Mary Jane, and she is on the Brooklyn Bridge, Queensboro Bridge.
Queensboro.
This is the Queensboro Bridge where there was the big fight with the Ultimates. And S.H.I.E.L.D. is currently cleaning it up, and Mary Jane is secretly recording them from a distance. And she gets spotted, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents run after her. You know, they catch up to her. They're about to confiscate her camera, and then Nick Fury is there. And he says, what the hell do you think you're doing? And Mary Jane says, you killed him. I know you killed him. It wasn't you who pulled the trigger, but it was you who had him killed. I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows. And Nick Fury just tells her to leave and that he doesn't want to see her again. He says, go home. Don't come back. before turning and saying back to work, and the SHIELD agents continue their cleanup. So from this reading, looks like Nick Fury has a little bit of remorse about what's happened. Mary Jane's made him feel a little bit badly, but not like so bad that he stopped and had a conversation with Mary Jane about it.
He
still confiscated her camera and, sent her on her way.
Right. But she got to him for a second there.
Yeah. Then we meet up with Aunt May, and it's the day of the funeral. They're on the way to the funeral. And it's her and Gwen, and then the kind of panel turns, and we can see that they're sitting in a limo with Tony Stark. And he says, Mrs. Parker, just so you don't have to worry, I'm picking up the tab for the funeral and all that entails. It's not a big deal for me, which I thought was kind of funny, but he does kind of save it. He says, it's not a big deal for me, and Aunt May's eyes kind of well up, and she's looking at him, and he says, I just don't want you to have to worry. And Aunt May tells him she doesn't want it to be a big thing. And Tony looks out the window and says, well, you might not have much say in the matter. And then we turn the page and we see a giant cathedral with a ton of people kind of standing outside, lining the streets for it.
So, John,
yes,
you know what's coming next. This is the part where I tell you what cathedral this is.
Oh, okay. Let me try to guess a random cathedral. This would, of course, be St. Peter's Basilica.
It is not. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, in Midtown. It's across the street from the Rockefeller Center. This, you probably don't remember, but I went to this cathedral the last time I was in New York a couple of years ago, and I talked about it on the pod and how blown away I was by how big and beautiful it is on the inside. And I said something like, oh, you'd like it. It's cool. And you're like, you kind of laughed. You're like, I don't know why you think I'd like it. It sounds all right, I guess, but whatever. And I said I had like a genuine spiritual experience there, even though I'm not religious or whatever. And what I couldn't tell you at the time was that was in no small part due to the fact that I sat there and I was like, my God, this is where Spider-Man's funeral was.
Dude, yeah, that's extremely cool. I have more respect, or not more respect, but more appreciation for that now. Is this also the cathedral? Would this be like the church in like Daredevil that Daredevil's always like climbing on the top of and like looking out over the city or something? Or is that a different church? Do you know?
I've always assumed it's different churches for Daredevil. It's just like generic churches.
Well, one his like buddy works, his like priest friend works at, like in the series Daredevil, he has like a priest that he goes and sees, but it probably isn't this.
I would assume his church is in Hell's Kitchen.
Okay, I was gonna ask if this was like I don't know the New York geography, so
right. This wouldn't be far. This would maybe be like a 30-minute walk from Hell's Kitchen, but I still would assume he'd have a closer church to him.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I get emotional. So, anyway, when I did turn the page and I saw all those people there, it did I was like, oh man, it was sad, right? I told you, I picked up the comic and I was like, oh, Spider-Man's dead. I forgot. And then you see how everyone's dealing with it. And then you see Aunt May and, it's kind of cool. The whole city's there. I wasn't really expecting that at all.
Neither was Aunt May, I don't think.
Yeah. So Aunt May and Gwen look out the window, and Aunt May says, I don't want this. And Tony says, ma'am, if you want me to take you home, I will. And she says, I don't have a home, which is also just very sad because you remember, like, oh yeah, all of their homes keep like getting destroyed by random things.
They probably have not been living in that house in the aftermath of the fight.
Yeah. Well, he says the hotel. So Tony says the hotel, like asking her if she wants to go there. So they probably have been living in a hotel for at least a couple days. And Tony tells her, this wasn't planned. This gathering, it just happened. If you have it in you, I think you should let it happen. The city needs to mourn too. This right now, this is about more than just people who actually knew him. That'll have to be for later. But that's not my call, it's yours. Do you have it in you? And Aunt May looks at him. And Tony says, I'll take you home. And she says, no, and she steps out of the limo. Aunt May, I feel so badly for her.
She is such a strong lady. And the thing that we keep hearing about her, which is that she didn't ask for any of this, it's still true, right? She's all she ever wanted to do was just like take care of her nephew and live with her husband. And now here she is in the middle of this like
it's like a
media
really
circus.
That's actually like really funny when you think about how she also did just kind of keep adopting superhero children. And she was actually like, honey, this gives me purpose. I want to do this.
Right. But she never thought she'd have to bury one of them, especially the one that she was, loved the most.
Okay. You're right. I mean, of course. So Aunt May's walking past all the people on the way into the church. And a little girl in the front row says, are you Spider-Man's mommy? And she says, no, sweetie, I'm his aunt. And the little girl says, but you made him breakfast like his mommy. And she says, yes, sweetie, I did. This was a really good scene. And, the little girl's like face kind of turns. You sort of get a close panel on her and her face turns and you can tell that her face is like sort of messed up even before you read what she says. And she says, when I was little, Spider-Man saved me from a fire so I didn't die. Oh, it's going to make me cry. Gosh, dude.
You thought we were past the sad parts?
No, of course not. We're at the funeral, dude. I'm like terrible at funerals. I am. I'm like such a sucker at funerals. Which I don't know. I guess there's worse things in life to be than like soft at a funeral. And the little girl reaches Tony, Aunt May, and Gwen kind of all, I don't know, just have such a like shocked and sad and like heartwarmed look on their face when she says that. And the little girl says, do you need a hug right now? And Aunt May starts crying and her and the little girl hug. And then this is how Aunt May turns and walks into the church. And she has just like the littlest bit of like a sweet smile on her face. That's almost like, it like makes her remember like why this really happened,
All the good Peter did.
Yeah.
It is funny that we canonically know he's only been Spider-Man for a year. And this little girl says, when I was little, he saved me from a fire. Like, she's probably 4.
Yeah,
and
she's still very little.
When she was 3, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's wearing a Tangled t-shirt. Like,
yeah.
This is the obviously, they designed, like, the cutest little girl to deliver this message. But it is so emotional.
It would be kind of interesting if we went back, if we did a reread, maybe next time we read it, to see if there's ever a time where they show Peter, like, I don't know, just rescuing a kid from a burning building, like offhand or something.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's just, we don't even need that. Just
I don't think it's in. I don't think it's in there. Just just be interesting if they showed it.
Just the implication that he was always saving people, and this was just a normal day to him, and it's literally saved this girl's life.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
So Aunt May and Tony and Gwen walk into the cathedral, and they walk down the aisle to their seats. And as they sit down, a big hulking brick house of a man, Captain America, walks up to Aunt May and says, "Excuse me, ma'am, my name is Captain Steve Rogers. I knew Peter." And she says, "You're Captain America." And he says, "I just wanted to say that." And he puts his head down. "It's my fault. It's my fault your boy is dead." And Aunt May's face, I don't know, gets like scared or shocked or something. Can't really tell. And it says to be continued. I wish we got to see the rest of this conversation in this issue, but I just don't really appreciate that cliffhanger. You know,
They needed some kind of cliffhanger.
I know
right?
they always leave it on a cliffhanger, but I don't think that's a good one. You know,
But short of, a villain trying to crash the funeral or something, what else was there that they could have done?
I guess they could have just stopped it right after saying, "My name's Captain Steve Rogers," and I think that would have been a little bit better.
Maybe.
It just feels like we're the cliffhanger is this poor woman's grief.
It is. That's what we have to work with right now. It's a quiet issue.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it came across or not, but I loved this issue. The only problem I had with it was the second panel was Gwen's thing. That's why I specifically mentioned it. That's the only part of this issue that I didn't even not like. I just thought it could have been better. I would have preferred to get something a little bit more personal from Gwen Stacy in the one page that we get her. But outside of that, I mean, I just thought it was so good, and the scene with the little girl really good.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best pages in the whole run.
Yeah. What did you think?
I also like it. I think it's really good that they did this because too often in comics, they're just focused on how individual issues sell. So what you end up getting is you'll get a rushed start for a cool idea, and then they will try and stretch out the action of that idea into as many issues as they can. And then there will be no resolution or follow-up. We're just right back into the next adventure that they're going to really hype up, the danger, so that issue sells. And what you need to tell good stories is you do need to take a break and a step back and think about the weight of what had just happened beforehand. And I'm really glad that I know you said for issue 160, you wanted it to not end there. You wanted to see people grieve for Peter. I'm glad that instead of doing that, they made a 6-issue miniseries about it. Because I feel like we've earned it. After 160 issues with Peter and then seeing him die and lose him, we need a good long retrospective to put everything to bed and wrap up the story with a conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't just leave off on the falling action of him dying. I'm glad they're giving us closure with Peter Parker.
Yep. So I am going to give this one, I'm still going back and forth with it. I'll give this one a 9 out of 10 students skipping class at Midtown High.
That's great. I also think it's a 9 out of 10 students skipping class.
Nice.
Did you have anything else for it?
No, I don't think so. Nope, we can go into yours.
All right. Ultimate Fallout, Spider-Man No More, issue number 2. This one is a jam comic, so it's written by Brian Michael Bendis. We do not have Mark Bagley again, unfortunately.
Ugh.
Bags is gone.
I know, and trust me, you feel it from the first page.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for coming back. Thank you for your service. We always salute Mark Bagley. Every time that it might be the last time we see him, we got to say thank you. This one has Gabrielle Hardman, colored by Frank Martin. And then the Thor pages, so that's Captain America. This is kind of, as a jam comic, it's broken down by which character is the focus of a scene and who's writing that. So Bendis is handling the Captain America section. Thor is actually written by Jonathan Hickman, which I did not see when I first read this, but I instantly knew it when I was reading it. I was like, "Oh, this is Hickman now. He's talking about some." This I could just tell the voice. Penciled by Brian Hitch, which is awesome because we just here recently got Hickman and Brian Hitch doing the Ultimate Universe relaunch. Inked by Paul Neary and colored by Paul Mounts. And then Rogue, We're going to spend some time with Rogue from the X-Men. That is written by Nick Spencer, who fairly recently had a really long and really good Amazing Spider-Man run. So this is another well-respected Spider-Man writer. Penciled by Lee Gabbert, inked by Roger Benet, and colored by Guru EFX.
What did you say this was called? This type of issue?
A jam.
Okay.
And here's another interesting thing about this trio of writers, Bendis, Hickman, and Spencer. At this point in time, they are the architects of reviving the Ultimate Universe. Because think about it, we're like a year or so removed from Ultimatum. Spider-Man just died. We need to create a whole bunch of new heroes and concepts that people are invested in so the Ultimate Universe doesn't die. And basically what they did was they gave Nick Spencer control over X-Men. Bendis retained control over Spider-Man, which will become Spider-Man Miles Morales. And then Hickman was given control over the Ultimates around this time. And these guys were kind of the three-headed monster in the way that like Bendis and Mark Miller had used to be the architects of the Ultimate line. These are now, for a brief period, these are the guys.
Yeah. Cool.
So we actually start the comic, and the first thing you notice, like John said, is that the art is very different from what it was in the last issue.
I think part of what has made this whole run so, like, what's made it feel like it's a whole story is that they all look the same. Even when it changes from, like, Bagley to Bear, Immonen. Oh yeah, Bear was the colorist with Bagley. Yeah, it's like it's not changing so dramatically. You know, it's still like a similar color and style ish. I mean, I'm sure an art person would tell me how wrong I am when I say that. But then they also have enough work that you get used to it, right? And it just changes eventually, and it's like, oh yeah, this is our story now. And I got to tell you, like right when I look at this and turn the page, I'm like, I'm in an Elseworld story here. It's like a multiverse of this, right? It's not what's actually happening. It's like this person's take on what's happening. That's just what it feels like. So right away, I was kind of off put by this, by how they did this. I'm like, this is Spider-Man's funeral. Can we just... And it's picking up right where we left off, like mid-conversation, and now it looks so different.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. If someone just had the trade paperback and they just flipped the page and this is how it continued, it would look very weird. And to me, it's almost the colors as much as the pencils that throws me off, because it's gone to very like dark, muted colors all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So Aunt May asks Captain America what he means, and Cap explains that the day Peter died, he told him he wasn't ready. He told Peter that he was a child and he didn't have a right to wear his uniform, and the gunshot wound that eventually killed Peter was meant for him being Cap. And May is crying and says, so after you emasculated him, even though he has proved himself a hero over and over again, after you told him he wasn't worthy, he saved your life? Is that what you're telling me? And she tells Cap he worshipped you people. He thought of you as knights at the round table. He put on a costume to be like you. And you people came into his life and promised to train him? He was fine before he met you. He was doing fine. And she's standing and pointing at Tony Stark, and then slaps Captain America in the face. And everyone's shocked, and May turns to see the whole crowd staring at her. And she walks outside and sees even more people outside surrounding the church, and collapses to the ground. And Gwen gets there.
I mean, like, so much just happened.
I know.
Okay, so going in order, first things first, what do we think about Captain America's, like, speech apology here?
I'm glad he feels guilty. And I think this is a part of the reason why just Ultimate Spider-Man readers do put the blame on him a lot. But we know, based off of what happened.
Oh, I wanted you to remind us. Yeah, what happened again in the issues we didn't read? They had like a conversation or something.
In the Mark Miller issues, so Peter takes the bullet for Cap, and then Cap immediately is like tending to the wound and telling Peter, thank you, and you didn't have to do that, and when you grow up, you're going to be the best of us.
We saw that part, didn't we?
We did. Well, that wasn't in Ultimate Spider-Man, is what I'm saying. That was in the book where the Avengers were fighting the Ultimates.
Oh, okay.
So that is the missing context. That's the scene missing that Bendis did not write, that a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man readers did not read, that I think changes the way I see Peter's death and Captain America's responsibility in it. And so, of course, Captain America feels guilty and like he should have done more, but he also shouldn't be beating himself up like this that much. I'm not holding Captain America responsible like a lot of people do.
Yeah. Well, I always have to compare Captain America to Chris Evans' Captain America.
Sure.
And think to myself, if Chris Evans' Captain America was in this situation, what would he do? Because that's going to depend on if I think this Captain America is being well characterized or not, you know? And I definitely think he would go up to Aunt May and say something to her. Now, whether he would do it like this, I don't know. He's kind of making everything about himself, which I don't really like.
Yep.
Right? I don't like going up to a grieving woman and just immediately being like, it's my fault he's dead, you know, in front of everyone. I do appreciate him saying something. Now, I don't think Captain America would cry. He's a stiff upper lip kind of guy, you know? But so Captain America crying, you know, I think he'd be very remorseful. He'd be holding it in, but, you know, you could tell maybe he wanted to, but he wouldn't. And then, gosh, you know, if we're just going to stay on Captain America before we go back to Aunt May, I obviously think it's awesome that he like didn't respond at all when she like chewed him out and then like smacked him. Like that's what he should do, is just stand there and, you know, take it. So all in all, pretty good, not perfect, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think I've said before, I know people who are big Captain America fans who hate Ultimate Cap, think that he's a completely different character.
And I've never thought that, have I? I mean, I've had a lot of fun with Ultimate Cap. There's been like some parts that have been like a little bad, I think. But for the most part, when I think about him in this, I'm usually pretty happy when I see him on screen. Am I misremembering stuff?
No, I think we both kind of are. There have been jokes made before about like, oh, Ultimate Captain America, that's like the fascist Captain America. That's like whatever. I don't go that far. Is he a little bit edgier than his counterparts that we are more used to? Definitely. But I think he still at heart like tries to be a good guy, wants to be a good guy. I don't think he's like U.S. Agent over here. I don't think they just put U.S. Agent in the place of Captain America and called him Captain America. This is still a Steve Rogers.
Yeah. No, I like this Captain America. So what about Aunt May?
She said something I think is really interesting. She
Was
said
it the word emasculated?
That was kind of interesting. That's not what I was going to say. What do you have to say about that?
Nothing. We can do yours.
Okay. When she said he saw you guys as the Knights of the Round Table, I kind of love that, because think about it ontologically. This is
What's that mean? Explain that to our listeners who don't know what that means. I'm obviously a master. I have my master's in education. I know what ontology is.
The branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, a set of concepts and categories in a subject, area, or domain that show their properties and the relation between them.
Okay, now obviously I have my master's in education, so I know what that means. But can you explain that to the listeners?
Sure, there are things that exist with comparisons that someone wouldn't necessarily see. Oh, this thing is connected to this thing, but it is, right? Like
Okay.
in the most basic sense of things, ancient pottery in Mesopotamia that we find is not that different from like the Brita filter or electric kettle that you have in your kitchen right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of the modern equivalent to something that we
Yeah.
had always had a need for.
Yeah. Did you know that the societies back in like Mesopotamia, and I can't remember what the other like really, really early society is. Can you
I mean, everything comes from Africa, they say, right?
I'm just trying to
If
think
you're
of
going back
one.
far enough.
I'm just trying to think of one specific like ancient civilization that I just can't think of what it's called. But anyway, if you know any, you could throw them out, and it'd probably be one of the ones that's right. But they had, well, all of them had like writing type forms of writing, forms of math, you know, and one of them even had indoor plumbing, like thousands and thousands of years ago. They still had like ways to have like indoor plumbing. And dude, that's just like, we're not as smart as we think that we are. You know, we like look at everyone and we're like, they're, you know, we're so much smarter than people were back then. But I don't know. Maybe we like know more,
Yeah.
but are we like smarter? Like,
Dude, I've seen like a 3,000-year-old urinal before. I've been to Mayan ruins in Mexico, and people are like, you see this little hole right here? And you're like, yeah. And like, guess what that was for? They used to piss into that.
that's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. Anyways, back to what she said about the Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
Anthropologists would look at us today and our relationship to mainstream superhero characters, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, the Hulk, Captain America, and would say this is our version of like the English canon with like Lancelot and King Arthur and all those guys, or how certain ancient cultures had their own like myths, you know, and their own gods, and they had all these stories with these reoccurring characters that when you say things like, oh, and Hercules was there, oh, Neptune was there, people know who you're talking about, even though they've never heard that story before. Superheroes are our version of that. It's like a universally understood character that represents a certain idea that we recognize in our society. So she's not wrong in a very meta way. She is explaining what superhero comics are. There are Knights of the Round Table, but she's also saying that Peter saw the Ultimates as, you know, this morally good group of like all-powerful movers and shakers that were doing everything in their power to help society.
Yeah. Well put. And I don't know. Would she like chew them out like this?
I do think this is in character for Aunt May, because we've seen before when she gets really mad, she says things that she doesn't mean. And I like that characterization is kept consistent here, because I remember I didn't like how she was talking to Peter during the Clone Saga. She's like, "You're not my son. Get out of my house. I didn't ask for any of this. You're gonna give me a heart attack, whatever." She said some really awful stuff because she was mad and stressed. And I think it makes her feel like a more real person. If we love Aunt May, but this is like one of her flaws that occasionally comes up.
Yeah. I agree. I think smacking Captain America, that's pretty good.
He probably didn't even feel it.
No way. Yeah. Okay, you can carry on. She passed out outside the
Yeah.
the cathedral.
Kind of forgot this was my issue. That's not good. Anyways, so she goes outside, and this is interesting. This is cool because this is accurate to where they are. From the steps of St. Patrick's Cathedral, you can look directly across the street and see the famous statue of Atlas holding up the world on Rockefeller Plaza. But it is interesting that's also in this panel kind of metaphorically as like what Peter was doing and trying to do, right? He's this great man who's holding everything together, and now he's gone. And I don't know if it's the sight of the crowd or the sight of the statue or just everything, but she does faint on the steps of the cathedral, and we see Gwen has like come to her side and is like asking her to please get up. And J. Jonah Jameson approaches her and introduces himself and offers his hand, and he's like, "We've spoken before, remember?" Which is a funny touch because she like called him and said horrible things, like,
Yeah,
to protect
she
Peter.
chewed him out.
She did, and here he is, at Peter's funeral, giving her a hand. It's pretty nice. He says, "I can help you back to your seat." And May says she doesn't know what she wants to do, if she wants to stay or leave. And Jonah's like, "If I may, I think you'll regret not going back inside." So she takes his hand and goes back in, and we hear the sermon start, and the pastor says Peter is now in a better place. And now it's drawn by Brian Hitch and written by the one and only Jonathan Hickman. And we see Thor kind of looking up and imagining a better place. And it says it twice. A better place, a better place. And all of a sudden, in his mind, he's in Asgard again. And we hear him think, "Midgard, Earth was put under my protection for a reason. Odin, you see, had great plans. Plans to remake 2 worlds." And we're seeing Thor standing on like a cliff in the sea as the sun and the clouds open up and a tree starts coming down to Earth. And Thor says, "The world tree. The source of all God's power, the very heart of Asgard, and now it grows here as well, just as Odin intended." And it's like from the sky, this beautiful big tree and this like angelic society is coming down to Earth. It's all very metaphorical. This is not something that's literally happening, but this is Thor's wishes. And he starts flying up into Asgard, and he says, "A better place, a better world." And we start seeing all of Thor's friends, and there's there's cameos. We've got Heimdall and the Warriors 3 and Loki and Hela in some of these panels. And Thor thinks, "Men can now look up. They can look up and know the gods. They can look up and know that they should live their lives as they are meant to be. If they are noble, if they have courage, then there is a place where they can find favor in Asgard with Odin himself. But be warned of men. Not many are able to complete this journey. The path is plagued with deceit and the inevitable death that comes to those that stray. But some will make it. The valiant, the bold. For those few, there is a great hall. For those faithful, there is a province. For those heroes, there is Valhalla." Which we know Valhalla is the Norse heaven that only great soldiers who die in battle can go to. And in this panel where he thinks that, this is one of my favorite things in these issues. We see Wolverine, Cyclops, Daredevil, and Janet Pym, the Wasp, sitting around an old-timey tavern table, eating and drinking with Spider-Man and welcoming him there. And John, I just love that. I love the idea that the first issue of this series was explicitly about Spider-Man. But now we're kind of thinking in general about everything that this universe has lost. Because in the span of like a little over a year of publication time, we have killed a lot of very important characters and never once really taken a break to think about that. And as much as this is just Thor's imagination, this isn't literally what's happening. The sight of Cyclops, Wolverine, Daredevil, Wasp, and Spider-Man all palling around in the afterlife and congratulating each other on a job well done. It is very calming. It's a cool panel. And Thor thinks, and there in that place, legends never die.
I didn't like this whole Thor thing at all.
Okay.
From like the very beginning of it, where all of a sudden he's like in the water and then everything's like happening in his head. I just like thought it was so dumb. And it's also funny that you said like you immediately knew it was Jonathan Hickman, because I was also just like, oh my gosh, just talk normal. Why are we? I just like I don't know. I'm like, we're in a Spider-Man funeral thing, and now we're like following Thor around about talking about the world tree and what is even happening here. And boy, and then they like put Spider-Man and all those heroes together, like having fun at a table. And I understand where you're coming from, but I was really like, I don't like this at all.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's not for everyone. This is absolutely a Jonathan Hickman comic right here. And it's funny because he has been criticized. I mean, generally people love him and his books sell incredibly well. And
well, I'm definitely not going to write
timeless.
off Jonathan Hickman over like 5 pages where he's like supposed to be talking like a Shakespearean Thor, character.
Right. But what I was going to say is, to the extent that he does have criticisms, it's like the only 2 things you ever hear is A, his writing is too high-minded, it's too metaphorical, it's not rooted in like real world situations, real people, real dialogue. It's always something that's like super heightened, even when the situation doesn't call for it. And I think his detractors would point to this as an example of that. And then like the other thing is people say he doesn't write women well. He has like his men doing all the important stuff. But if you like Hickman, you'd like this page. And if you don't, you probably won't. It is interesting. That's been his reputation for about 15 years in the comic world. And right now he's writing the new Ultimate Spider-Man book, where I think it's his goal to prove people wrong and prove that he can tell family-based and street-level stories really well. And he doesn't always have to be doing this, like, I don't know, like poetic, mystical, big stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of like, when I saw that, like the panel of, Peter celebrating like moments after he's dead, kind of, I thought, boy, this is a little disrespectful to Peter. And then you do see Thor sitting in the church, and it's like, well, that's really what this big dumb oaf Thor actually believes, because he says it all the time. We always hear him talking about like dying in battle and going to Valhalla. So like he probably is. He's got like a little stupid smirk on his face sitting in the church, and he's like, it's like, well, if this is what you believe, right? It's your who am I to detract from your belief? If you want to think that they're all up there celebrating, then so be it, right? I guess reading this, I'm still in the mindset like Peter is dead and we are like coping with the loss from Aunt May and Gwen and everything. So it seems a little wrong to be like if he shared this with Aunt May, it would give her no closure at all.
No, but he's keeping it to himself.
Exactly. Right? That's what makes it kind of okay, is he's just smiling to himself in the church.
I think it's cute in the sense that at just about every funeral, there's probably like someone there who is very religious, who is sitting there and actually getting comfort from the thought, well, this person who I love is in heaven. And I can see someone like sitting in a funeral and like thinking about what's it like in heaven. They're walking on clouds, everything's made of gold, they have a mansion, they're with Jesus, and they're like visualizing this. And it is funny that in a Marvel comic story,
So
you
heaven
say,
has capitalism.
no, just mansions. It's all automated. Anyways, it is funny that in a Marvel comic story, they're like, okay, what is the version of that only we can tell? Thor's thinking about Valhalla.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's do it. Okay, now we move into our third act, written by Nick Spencer. This is Rogue from the X-Men, who we have really not spent any time with in the Ultimate Universe. I'm not going to lie, I don't know much about this version of Rogue. Seems like she's based off of the Anna Paquin character in the movies, but we'll see what her deal is. She's sitting in a diner, and it's raining, and they're watching the funeral coverage on TV. And she is thinking to herself, I didn't really know the guy. I mean, I met him a few times. He seemed nice enough. Kitty liked him, but we weren't close or nothing like that. And the waitress comes up to her and asks her, "Are you okay, sweetie?" Because she can see Rogue is crying. And she tries to say, "We can turn off the TV if you want." And she goes to touch Rogue's hand to comfort her. And Rogue is wearing fingerless gloves. And so she touches the waitress's skin barely. And if we've ever seen any X-Men movie or the cartoons, you know what's happening. This lady's life forces and memories get sucked from her, and she freaks out. And Rogue's like, "Ah, heck, sugar, I gotta get out of here." And she runs out of the diner. And the people are like worried about the waitress because she just recoiled and was scared. And Rogue thinks, getting sloppy, crying in my tomato soup. Not gonna get much further acting like that. I've been to enough funerals. I should be used to it all by now, right? And she thinks about all the people in Ultimate X-Men that have died. And she thinks Kane, and we see the Juggernaut. She thinks Rami, and we see Gambit. Logan, Scott, the Professor, all in my head, all the time.
How did Logan die? He got atomized or something?
Killed by Magneto.
Magneto? Yeah. Okay.
In Ultimatum.
That's what I thought.
And even in this, I was thinking, that's not even all the X-Men we saw die in Ultimatum. They lost Beast, they lost Nightcrawler, they lost Angel, they lost Dazzler. I mean, this is an interesting take. I kind of didn't understand at first why we were following Rogue, but then I'm thinking, we need to see one of the X-Men because they're dealing with death more than anyone else in this universe. So what is one more death of a guy that wasn't even their teammate? What's that like for them? What is Spider-Man dying feel like to someone who was already grieving? And she says, "The other thing about my touch, when I connect with someone, I keep a little piece of them. Their memories, their dreams, their fears. Makes for a lot of ghosts in the end." Is this playing well at all, doing her voice?
You've got a pretty good accent going. It's a better Southern Belle accent than I could do. That's for sure.
Well, I've practiced Rogue a little bit. Keep in mind, one of my cat's names is Rogue. So
that's true.
I will talk to her. Sometimes, John, this is the nerdiest thing about me. Sometimes Rogue will do something and I'll be like, "Ah, heck, sugar, that ain't for you to eat."
That's awesome.
Or Storm will do something and I'll be like, "Mistress of the elements, I command you, get out of the sink."
I do that with Baby Billy also. He'll do something, I'll be like, "God damn it, Baby Billy. You got to know where your bread is buttered in this house."
I don't know how to talk to Jubilee like she's, you know. Jubilee, does a mall babe eat chili fries? But I don't know how to turn that into, parenting my cat. Okay, so she says, "So I've been trying to get away from that life, trying to get back to being normal, get back to go home, but nothing's ever gonna be the same as it was, sugar. Back when I first got to Xavier School, after I left the Brotherhood, I looked up for one afternoon, and there stood an angel, plain as day. Then I looked to my right, and there was a demon. And now she's walking in the rain, and she's walking up to a church, and it wasn't heavy-handed enough. She's seeing the face of Angel on one side and Nightcrawler on the other, because they, like I said, they're also people that just died recently. I told the professor it was a sign. The seeing those things on Earth appear before us, that meant all kind of bad things was coming our way. He didn't think much of that at the time. I wonder what he'd say now. Him and Magneto both dead. And I will give power to my two witnesses. I'm guessing that's from the Bible, but there's also a hardcore band from Louisville called Two Witnesses that I'm just realizing also probably got their name from that.
I think it's a Bible verse.
Yeah. The great flood of New York. He poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man. And this is cool that she's thinking all of this. There's a lot of religious symbolism. There's a lot of talk of death, a lot of talk of rain and the flood from Ultimatum. And she's literally going up to a church to get shelter from the pouring rain. She thinks, mutants running for their lives, getting rounded up and put in camps, shot on sight. They will seize you and persecute you. They will deliver you to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors. I know why all this is happening. At this point, she's in the church. It's why I'm crying like a baby in front of a TV while they bury some boy I barely knew. It's why I'm falling on my knees in front of God, begging for some mercy just this once. This is the end of the world. And I ain't praying for one of the souls of the lost we done lost. I'm praying for us, because we're next.
You're an X-Man person.
I'm so tired of doing that.
What do we think about Rogue's story?
It doesn't work in the sense that as Spider-Man readers, we don't know or care anything about Rogue in this universe.
I don't know or care about anything. I think it's like so dumb. And now for the past like 12 pages of this issue, I've been dealing with Thor's stupid shit, and now I'm dealing with Rogue's stupid shit, and I don't care about either one of them.
Yeah. So this is why I have been trying to lead into all of this with, these are the new architects of the Ultimate Universe line. Hickman is working on the Ultimate side. Nick Spencer is working on the X-Men side. This is them setting up what they're going to do, wrapping up what has happened to those characters before, and they have to tie it to the theme of all these people are grieving. So when you look at it as this is supposed to be a Spider-Man issue, they're bad. They're bad additions to the story. But when you think of it as within this issue that is set during Spider-Man's funeral, the whole Marvel Universe needs to reckon with this. I understand what they're going for, and I actually kind of like the fact that they're not glossing over the fact that Ultimatum just happened, right? These are not two separate events. These are being processed by people in that world as, dude, we just lost like almost all our heroes, and now Spider-Man's gone too. This sucks. What do we do now? So while this doesn't hit me like they probably wanted it to, I appreciate that they're showing how big all of this is and how it's connected to other things. Okay. So now we have one last page, and we see what Mary Jane is up to. She's typing in her bedroom on a laptop, and we see she's writing an article titled How the World Killed Spider-Man that seems to start out by saying Peter's death was inevitable. And next to her laptop are pictures of Nick Fury, Captain America, and Iron Man. So it seems like she's going after all of them. They're to blame.
Yeah, and a couple things. So one, she's not at the funeral because the funeral's on in the background.
Right.
And this is what her article says that she's typing out. The events that killed the hero known as Spider-Man may seem sudden and shocking to the average New Yorker, but they were sadly inevitable. The forces at work behind what is referred to as the superhero community have taken another casualty.
It's
So
sad.
she's the one that did think it was all inevitable.
She has said multiple times in the run, "You're going to die, Peter. This is going to kill you." Putting on that mask and going out there and fighting bad guys. She tried to warn him.
Yeah. Well, Aunt May is also correct at the same time because, and I think it's a good little juxtaposition with her walking into the cathedral and seeing like the little girl that he saved when he's just like friendly neighborhood Spider-Manning around,
Mm-hmm.
and then she walks in and sees Captain America, and like that's a totally different side of all of that superheroing stuff.
Right. Like Mary Jane says the superhero community, like she's talking about the military industrial complex. And Captain America represents that side. Like the guys that work for S.H.I.E.L.D. and go into battle zones because the government tells them to. Not kids that are saving children who run into the street.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave this one a 1,400 out of 1,610 memorials for everyone we've lost so far in the Ultimate Universe.
Wow, that's so much higher than I'm about to give it. Okay, out of 1,600,
that's like an 80%.
Out of 1,610 makes 805, 50%. I am going to go ahead and give this one a, 675 out of 1,610. So maybe 40% off the top of my head. Dude, I just really didn't like this one, especially as a follow-up to the one that I read, which I almost gave a 10, and I ended up giving it a 9. The scene with Aunt May and Cap is fine in the beginning. It is not good, nor is it bad. It's just fine. Probably one of the highlights is J. Jonah Jameson helping Aunt May up. But even that, it just doesn't feel right because they look so different from the characters we're used to. So it does take a little something away. And then the very final page with Mary Jane is also fine. So that's where it is getting its 40% out of those things. And the Thor stuff I told you I didn't with, and Rogue stuff I just totally didn't care about at all.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like it's a good thing we've spent the last 2.5 years reading almost primarily Bendis, because maybe you didn't like the Nick Spencer part and you didn't like the Jonathan Hickman part. So
but it's
really
also because, like you said, someone who we're reading Spider-Man comics, and those had nothing to do with it. They came out of nowhere. So you said you appreciate what they're trying to do, and that's fine. But I didn't appreciate what they were trying to do.
Sure.
So I'm just judging them on what they did.
I do think Spider-Man dying is a big enough thing that we need to see it affect the rest of the Ultimate Universe. And that's what this issue delivered. It was not meant to show us what our characters that we are used to are thinking and feeling.
But Rogue didn't even care. She just talked about random the whole time.
Yeah, if there was another X-Men that it could have
been.
Thor,
it felt like was also just talking about random stuff the whole time. We could have, dude, it could have been a good idea. Give Thor 2 pages and give Rogue the same thing, 2 pages. And then maybe you actually give us a couple other people who we could also look at for a couple pages, like Ben and Sue or something like that. But to give them both so much space where they say so little, and they're saying it in such wordy and difficult to they're both just she's talking like a country girl and he's talking like a Shakespearean guy, and no one's just talking normal, and no one's even talking about Spider-Man.
So I hate to tell you this, but the next issue is written by Spencer and Hickman. So let's see. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
I'm not,
you'll like
I'm not
their
against,
voices.
I'm not against that. I mean, I'm not against them as a whole. I'm
Maybe
sure
you'll
Jonathan Hickman is awesome just based on how I know he's like the main guy on everything I want to read.
Yeah. Maybe you'll like their voices with some other characters more.
Yeah.
Did we have anything else on these issues? Next week, we're getting into Ultimate Fallout number 3 and 4.
I don't think I have anything else on these issues.
You want to talk Thunderbolts?
Yes, I definitely want to talk about Thunderbolt.
All right.
Okay, what'd you think, Zach?
Dude, such a good breath of fresh air from the MCU that I had all but written off. Someone said it reminded them of when they saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie in theaters, and I know exactly what they mean, because there's something about when you go into a movie where you only kind of know the characters. It's not like your favorite Marvel characters by any stretch of the imagination. You don't have super high expectations, but then they deliver something really good, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I do care about these characters now.
Yeah.
That's almost more rewarding than when they promise like the best movie ever, like Endgame or Infinity
definitely.
War. And then they still end up being good, but there was just no way they could fully live up to the expectations. Thunderbolts was that. I also felt like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I felt like I was watching one of the movies that Vought would make and release in like the Boys universe. Like it felt like a superhero movie that knew it was a superhero movie.
But that'd be bad, right? Aren't those like always like corny? That feels more like the MCU movies we usually have been getting.
So it was corny, but in like a delightful way, right? It was leaning into the cheesiness at the right times, and it wasn't. I think what people don't like about MCU humor, everyone jokes about lines like, he's right behind me, isn't he? Or
yeah,
like that kind of writing. Or, someone will say their name and they'll be like, you're Doctor Strange? Okay, that's weird. I guess we're using our made up names. Almost like they're written by someone who hates comic books. Someone who just doesn't respect the source material. This was like self-depreciating humor that never actually felt self-depreciating, right? It felt like people who actually had a lot of love and fun and respect from the comics or other MCU properties or something. It felt like they knew how to put in corny jokes that wasn't punching itself in the balls.
Well, I also loved it. I thought it was so good. Just like how you said that you didn't really go in with any expectations. I thought nothing about this movie the entire time it was coming out. I was like, I don't really care about Yelena, the new Black Widow, I don't really care about any of these characters. I didn't really even know who was in it. I was like, I know Bucky's going to be in it, and I love Bucky, but he's just going to be like one of 6 guys that I don't know. I'm like, it's going to be some like slop, right? Just like they all are. And man, I went into it like knowing nothing about it. And gosh, it was just so good. I was just like blown away at how good it was. It felt like it was actually made with a purpose, like you said. It felt like it was made by people who like wanted to make that specific movie, not just like churning out the next MCU project that's going to make $1 billion. And it was definitely my favorite since Endgame. It was my favorite out of all of the new ones. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is really good, but that's not as fun as this. This is just like more fun, and
this is rewatchable.
I just like dude, I saw it twice already. I went and saw it yesterday, kind of knowing that we were going to talk about it. And
Guardians 3 had a little bit too much like sad animal stuff in it for me to want to rewatch it as much as I liked it.
But this was like, I just thought it was great. from the very start, I was like, gosh, this is like a good message that I'm really like relating to right now. And I, sometimes movies just like hit you and,
It was such a good message, and it wasn't performative. It wasn't like they made a formulaic movie and then said, wait a minute, we have to put some kind of message in here. And then scribbled a couple lines about something,
No, I thought it felt like extremely like well written and everything, and like not cringy at all. All of the characters and the things they were going through like felt so real, and like you can just like put yourself in all of those different like situations, and I just have like a million things to say about it, but which I'm sure we'll get to, but I think it's a problem, just speaking of like relating to the characters, it's a big problem for the MCU that I like knock off Captain America, and I feel like I know him as a character better than I know Sam Wilson, who is Captain America. Like, I feel nothing for Sam. I know nothing about his character. I don't know, and I don't know what his struggles are or his like fear. I know he needs to fix a boat at the end of the TV show, but he's not like a real character. And all of these guys in this movie, they actually have like flaws that they have to overcome and like work together to succeed. It's just like better.
It is. The one character that I was not loving was Ghost. I still don't know anything about Ghost. I don't really understand her deal.
She's definitely the weak point.
She had nothing to add to the team, and I'm a little bit sad that she killed Taskmaster, and obviously that was like a big twist at the very beginning of the movie because everyone thought Taskmaster would be part of the team. If we are to have one of those two ladies who has a cool power and no personality, I think I would have rather had Taskmaster around for more like action scenes. But that's whatever. That's like such a minor gripe.
I have like made a mental note that I need to go back and watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, because when that came out, I only really went and saw it because I knew there'd be a post-credit scene relating to Infinity War. And I even like saw it at midnight when it came out, and I remember like falling asleep in the theater, like just waiting for it to be over so I could see the post-credit scene. And that's the movie Ghost is in. So I kind of need to rewatch that and see if maybe I'm like missing out on Ghost a little bit, but I felt the same way. I'm like, the team is really Yelena, Red Guardian, Bucky, and John Walker. And Ghost is like there, but she didn't get nearly as much like characterization. And I feel really bad for Taskmaster also, because she could have been part of this like found family, and instead, she just got killed like really early on. That's sad. And Yelena had like a really good line in it where she's talking about it and she just says she had a hard life. She killed a lot of people and she got killed. Same thing that'll happen to all of us one day. And all of them just feel very well written to me. Like, they all get a lot of character depth without having to like say what they're feeling, right?
Yeah. I had another take on it, which is this movie could have been made very similar to what we got in a completely different genre, which is kids going to summer camp, right? The first third of the movie felt to me like the beginning of The Parent Trap, where, it's like camp hijinks, right? They literally have, they all meet and they all fight.
Well, every superhero team up, they have to fight for a bit, and then they're mates.
And then
That's
they team
the
up.
Classic. Yep.
Yeah. So after they get done fighting, they're like in an escape room, essentially, and they like have to get out of there. And then it's like, oh, we're going in on them, but non-lethal, right? This is like they're playing paintball with the camp counselors. And then they have to go back to back and walk up the big elevator shaft. And that's like a team building exercise. And then later they have another escape room that they have to do. And then the dad shows up and picks them up from camp. And now we're out of summer camp, but we're like hanging out with our friends still. And their dad is now with us. And he's going to go take us to do this other thing. And it's laser tag. And the whole, it felt like they have to do this team building activity, and then they have to do this team building activity, and they have to do this team building activity. And by the time we get to the end, this will be like a well-oiled machine where everyone knows their role and trusts each other.
Yeah. There's a lot of like really good small moments where before they all are like working together, someone will do something and you can see on one of the other teammates' faces, they like gain a newfound respect for them. Like in that moment, they just like are like, oh, okay, this person's not as like useless, as I thought they would. And some specific ones that I can think about are when Yelena is sticking her head out the window and to like shoot the truck, and John Walker's like, what are you doing? There's nothing to shoot. And then she shoots like one shot and the truck like flips it. She hits it in the right spot. And you can just like see on his face. And like, that's like a really good, just like 1 second shot. It's good that they cut, that's good filmmaking that they cut back to his face and had him show like an ounce of like admiration or something. And there's like every character gets that moment at some point where you're like, oh, they're starting to become friends. And in that scene, probably right after that happened, I looked over at my sister. I was like, they're all becoming a team. They just need Bucky. And then like 30 seconds later, Bucky like shows up on his motorcycle, and even US Agent is like, it's Bucky, yeah. Like, I love that they all love Bucky. I think that's so great.
Yes. That scene where he shows up and he's a congressman, but he's still got his flowing hair in the wind and sunglasses, and he's in a badass leather jacket on a motorcycle with a shotgun, and he comes and saves the day, and it's like nothing to him. He looks like such a stereotypical action hero. It reminded me of like T2, like the second Terminator movie.
I think it must. I've never seen the Terminator movies, but there must be a scene like that, because that's exactly what I was thinking too. I'm like, I think I've seen like the Terminator do this same thing, like riding on a motorcycle with a shotgun or something. This just looks like it's happened before.
That's like half of that movie, man.
Is it?
Yeah. And it just felt so like that's an example of this is kind of cheesy, right? This is not how anyone would actually do an action sequence in real life if they're like, a combat veteran. This is how you do an action sequence if you're trying to like rip off a Jerry Bruckheimer action movie.
I kind of had this thought. I love Bucky so much.
Or James Cameron, whoever made the Terminator.
Yeah, James Cameron's Terminator. I love Bucky so much. He's like one of my favorite characters, but I think he might be the worst actor in this movie. And he's still fine in it, but he's just like a little more wooden than everybody else. And maybe that's because like he's being a congressman and that's not really his personality anyways. So he doesn't really, but yeah, everything he does, he feels like he doesn't do it with as much emotion. And it's just like a little more like movie versus like real life.
Yes. At no point did I feel like I was not in a theater watching a movie, but that didn't detract from this experience.
I thought there were
added to it. I was like, This is what a movie should. If you're just making a fun little superhero romp, this is what it should feel like.
Yeah. And like when Bucky like takes off his shirt, like in multiple different scenes, they like are just like getting excuses for it. And I'm like, why is this happening? why does it happen twice? Is the real thing. It's cool it happened once. It's like, oh, we get to see Bucky's arms, but then he's like fighting Sentry and he takes off his jacket again. It's like, why do we, they're like leaning into, I don't know, Bucky, just everyone loving him, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's good that I don't really care about Bucky in the comics. Like I never encounter that dude in the comics. That is just an MCU character to me. So they can't really get him wrong.
Yeah.
That's how I felt with everyone in the movie, you know? They just had so much freedom to do cool stuff, and they understood that and ran with it.
Yeah. Okay. What about Red Guardian? We'll just go through the characters.
I will say, I don't know that I have time for that. I'm
Zach.
supposed to be at my parents' house in like 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Wow, then we're going to have to hop off here pretty soon.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, well, I want to talk about like two other things.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, I could talk about like a million other things. Dude, it's awesome in this movie that it's smaller scale. And, you know, the very first time we meet Red Guardian, he says what he like loved most was saving civilians and like hearing the screams. And then he gives like him and what's her name, Yelena, do like an awesome talk about how she like wanted to be the goalie on her team. So when other people made mistakes, you know, she could be the one that they turn to. And then something happens and he says, it's time. And the very first thing he goes and does is like save civilians from like a falling thing. And that's just cool. It's another problem for the MCU that Russian Captain America is a better Captain America than the one that we have now. But hopefully they will fix that at a certain point. They will actually give Sam some good writing because there's no reason he couldn't have been, you know, as good as any of these characters. And then John Walker's also, you know, dude, you got to feel for that guy. He's like been through a lot and it's not that big of a deal killing a terrorist in the street. And for some reason, everyone like hates him for it. And he goes through a lot, like 3 times in this movie for no reason at all. His like friends are like, you're a piece of shit, dude. Your wife and kids are gone. Sorry. And to his credit, he never says anything back. He's not like, okay, chill the out, Bucky. You killed a lot of people too. So
yeah, I think it's good. It's only a good thing if John Walker is a nuanced character. You don't want him to be like, oh, this guy is really good. He's always right. I'd follow him to the pits of hell. No, he doesn't belong there. But you also don't want him to be, this is the reprehensible Captain America. This guy is a bad person.
Yeah.
He exists to be that gray area. And this movie understood that.
Yeah. And then Valentina, Alexa, whatever, says at some point, do you want to be good or do you want to be someone who changes the world? What's that remind you of, Zach?
Cecil.
I know.
That's like I liked it still, but it did seem like a worse version of Cecil's speech.
It's definitely a worse version. Yeah. But they're like similar. Okay, and then another one of my favorite parts is when, I know Zach has to go, so we're going to have to talk about more of this next week, but one of my favorite parts, probably Bucky had so many good parts, but his best acting part was probably when they're all going through the like shame rooms at the end, and they're like, how are you all doing? And he says, oh, I'm good. I have a great past, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, that was funny. And it's funny that his past is so publicly known.
We don't have to see that.
They just met him that day and they know what he's talking about because it's on Wikipedia. Yeah. This guy killed JFK.
Yeah, really good stuff. Okay, well, maybe next week we'll have to talk more about Bob and the Void and everything.
For sure. I don't know if I'll get the chance, but I'd like to see it again before next week.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. Okay, what's our jam of the week, Zach? We didn't do one last week.
We didn't. In honor
of Spider-Man passing away, we went with a silent, episode.
Sure. It was classy.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give you a 7-minute long pop punk jam. It's
Perfect.
called I Just Want to Sell Out My Funeral by the Wonder Years. One of my
love
favorite
it.
songs by one of my favorite bands. And I think it is apt for Spider-Man.
For selling out the funeral.
He touched a lot of lives and will always be remembered.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Awesome. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Let's say that. And thank you to Ian Hickey for the music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. You can find us the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. And you can leave us a message on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast. Go Sirs!
Yes, sir. See you next week.